Right. So thank you so much, Brittany, for joining me today. I'm so excited to chat holistic health and food connection with you. I think that this is such an important topic in our Western society that not a lot of people honestly think about or talk about. So I think this is so important. And I would love to just start off by hearing a little bit about your story and what you do.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you first of all for having me, Meg. I'm really happy to be here. Talking about these things really lights me up, so I'm happy to share. But yeah, just so you guys have a little bit of an introduction to me and my story. For me, it started about 11 years ago when I really became conscious of how unhealthy my relationship was to food. I was a big binge eater, binge eating disorder. I was really overweight, unhappy, and everything that goes along with that. Low self-esteem, like didn't trust myself, all that stuff. And I was also in my last year of university. And I was in that point in my life where I'm like, well, what am I going to do with my life? I realized I didn't want to be a teacher anymore in the typical way. I'm like, I don't want to be stuck teaching grade fives my whole life. What else am I supposed to do? So I had this moment where I was reading Eat, Pray, Love, and she goes into the bathroom, she falls to the floor, she calls to God, and God answers her. And I'm not a religious background at all. And so that was really foreign to me, but I was like, hey, if she could do it, I could do it too. And so that's what I did. I kind of moved through all the chocolate wrappers on my bed, like went on the floor and was like, God, like what void am I trying to fill? That was the question I asked because I'm like eating so much. And the answer that I heard was that I'm afraid of failing. And I just saw the list of everything in my mind that I was afraid of failing at. And in that moment, I made a decision. And I decided that I was no longer going to have my life be based on fear, but I'm going to have my life be based on love. And I said, God, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to do that. So you better guide me. Right. So it's like first time ever, open-hearted, open-minded, let's show me this stuff. Right away, the synchronicities happen. And it led me to become a life coach. And so I got, certified as being a life coach. And then I got led to hypnotherapy and became a hypnotist and then NLP. And then I got led all around the world. I went to Hawaii and I had my first experience there with Jesus, actually. It really opened up my heart. And he's like, I'm going to guide you. Like, you're an anchor of love and light on this planet. Like, trust me. And I'm like, what? So that turned my world around, but it was perfectly timed because as soon as I came home from Hawaii after this beautiful empowering experience, I had my husband that I'm with now come into my life and introduce me to A Course in Miracles. And to me, I'm like, that's the answer. Jesus said he would help me. This is the answer. And so I dove right into metaphysics. And what's interesting about this is because I had asked for help with my physical body, I was led to everything that had to do with my mind and my emotions first. Right. And then once I kind of started training my mind through A Course in Miracles, have this background helping people, it was only at that point that I started leaning into holistic nutrition, that I started, really understanding how to be active in my body and how to cook for other people. And it was at that point where I was carried, and me and my husband together now traveled, and we traveled many places around the world, and people would open up their hearts and homes to me. And I was like, well, how can I best serve these people? And I'm like, food, I've got to cook for them. Like, that's it. Right. And so I just started cooking and learning about all these different types of cuisines and ways to put food together. And I was like, wow, like when I stopped trying to eat to just fill a void and instead gave from my soul, everything was given to me. I lost all the weight. I now have a healthy, loving relationship to food. And when I started to realize my deep passion around food and cooking, and then I had my daughter and I was like, whoa, I am responsible for the growing body of this baby. Like, this is so important. And I'm like, because I now had my background in holistic nutrition, I felt blessed to be able to do that. But I'm like, there's so many people and moms who don't have the awareness that I have. I have to give back. I have to serve. And that is where my business, Whole and Healthy Kitchen, was born. And so now Whole and Healthy Kitchen is my practice, my ability to serve my clients, to serve my students, and help bring to them everything from mind, emotions, body, spirit, cooking in a beautiful package that's most practical and helpful to them. And it's my soul's purpose. So I'm grateful to be doing this work.
Like, you're living your soul purpose. Like, it's so that's an incredible journey. Like, thank you so much for sharing that. It's so beautiful. And I think that what you're doing now and where you've come, oh my God, I can feel it. I can feel it from you, like the joy and like how you can give to other people. And I'm just wondering, like what you, in your own words, like you said it, like not enough women understand how to do this, how to feed themselves, how to feed their families. And where do you feel like what do you feel like the importance is of like truly understanding your nutrition? Because for me, I feel like a lot of people that I work with, they really don't know how to feed themselves. And it just comes from a place of like, I've been so inundated with diet culture. This diet says this diet says this, my mom says this, my best friend says this. I don't understand how to feed myself. And I'm just wondering, like, for you, where do you see that importance in understanding just your basic nutrition?
Oh, such a good question. And I'm having goosebumps. Like you banged it on the head. Like that's what it is we're inundated by diet culture and people not knowing what to do, teaching other people what not to do. Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's sick. It's not, it doesn't work. But for me, in my experience, and going through holistic nutrition, I really realized the importance of nutrition when we think of things like, I'm just going to use this language. God created vegetables and fruit and grains and like legumes and all of these delicious things to nourish our bodies because he knows exactly what these bodies need, right? Like, let's just get real. Let's just get back to basics. And I found for people, the most difficult thing is learning how to bring all those seemingly separate items of food together to make a meal. And that seems to be like the strugglesome part. But what I found really helpful for me in understanding like why is nutrition so important is by thinking about like how the body works.
Mm-hmm.
And how the body breaks down things. So my big focus is always on like enzymes, which I'm sure you're a big fan of too. But just to give like an imagery that was really helpful for me and really starting to lock into my love for vegetables was to realize, okay, so if I'm going to eat food, the digestive process starts in my mouth and there's the amylase. It's going to break it down, the digestive enzyme, and then it's going to go into my body and it's going to sit in my stomach. And if I have the right vegetables that I ate and I have the right probiotics and gut flora, it'll break it down, it'll go through my body, I'll have lots of energy, I'll feel great, I'm nourished, fantastic. But if I'm not eating, the healthy fruits and vegetables that my body needs, that have the enzymes that my body needs, and I'm just eating like big burgers or whatever diet culture says that we're supposed to eat, even just like high protein meals, which is what I was before, then when we actually go through the digestive process and that food that ends up in our stomach, instead of it getting broken down into the tiny particles that the body can actually deal with it, big particles are left in the stomach. And then those big particles, as you know, they rot, they ferment, they start to break holes into our stomach lining, and then it leaks into our body. And then once it's in our body, inflammation and sickness, and oh my goodness, all the terrible effects of that. So when I started seeing it as the whole picture, right, and realized like, wow, like what I eat really makes a difference for how I feel and how my body is either going to absorb it and use it or make me sick, I really realized how much I want to stick on the side of fruits and vegetables and nutrition because it really makes a difference in my quality of health, my quality of life. And so, yeah, that's how I look at it and see it as its importance.
It's so true. And I don't know if you can kind of like remember back, like I can remember back to my days of like overeating and binging and just like that poor relationship with food that you kind of like touched on a bit too. Just like not but almost like putting that, I don't want to label it as like bad food or processed food, but like the foods that would be our trigger foods and our binge foods, like almost putting them on a pedestal and therefore like being unable to resist them, and just changing that whole mindset as well to like what is going to make your body feel good. And it's like truly that balance. And I think that holistic nutrition is something I've always been really interested in. And I have a background in nutrition sciences, but have always wanted to, yet not yet done the root down holistic nutrition. And I would just love to hear what you feel like about holistic nutrition stands out for you.
Excellent. This is a great question too. And I think the reason why like holistic nutrition really speaks to me and spoke to me was because it deals with the whole person. So it deals not just with the physical body, which is essential and so important, but it also deals with the emotional body and the mental body, but then also the spiritual body. And so it'll include earth and it includes others in your thinking and in your well-being. And that to me was like, that's it. That's how I knew it was for me, because I was already thinking in the context of like, how can my life change the lives of others? Right. And so that became a really big thing for me. And I found in working with my clients too, that ensuring that the mental side of thing is part of that, so that, they really want to eat healthy, but if they're still telling themselves that they suck at, making meals, that they hate, eating healthy, and like they have these patterns of thought and belief, then it's really hard for them to stick with it in the kitchen. So I really found when we bring it back to like the emotional, mental, spiritual side of things and include the whole perspective, then we can really shift and make new changes and new habits really stick. So that was like a big one for me.
That's
Whole perspective.
so beautiful. Like, I love that. And I think that something I hear a lot from people is like, oh, I'm like so sick of like cooking this way, or like trying to make it healthy, or like it just comes from such a place of like hating your food, and like a place of like being bored or being frustrated. And I think that, I'm sure you can relate, like there's so many negative emotions that we can tie to our food, not just about our food, but like about our bodies. Like I definitely used to eat from a place of like hating myself, and like you said, like filling a void, that there is something missing, and also eating from a place of like, I don't want to do this, but I have to. I have to eat this way. I have to eat this diet. I have to eat this food, and I don't really like it. And there were just so many negative emotions around that. And it took so much to change that to a positive emotion around food. And it was really weird that it almost felt wrong. Like it almost felt like, as women, we're supposed to be at war with our food. We're supposed to be at war with our bodies. Like we're not supposed to be like embracing it and loving it. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be difficult. We're supposed to have willpower. And it was just like such a messed up mindset to feel like I feel negative about my food, but that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't like, I'm sure that must have come up. And how have you found you can shift your perspective to a more positive mindset around your food?
Beautiful. Big question. But I completely resonate and relate to everything you just said, because I think, like we started at the beginning, we're just so confused about what we should and should not eat. And unfortunately, healthy food gets put in the category of should. And yeah, we all know that if we, just like with kids, like it's like, you should do this. They're like, yeah, no, they go in the opposite direction. It's same with us inside of ourselves. So I found for me, the way that I've looked at it, and I help my clients look at it, is understanding that anytime we reach to like the unhealthy food, or even if we have to like force ourselves on the good food, the language that I've put around it is it's like a faulty problem solving approach. Like we're trying to solve our problems in the wrong way.
Oh, I love that. That's so interesting. Like looking for a solution in the diet.
Yeah, looking for a solution in the diet, you know, and that's the one thing I'm grateful the path that I went on that helped me to see that my answer is not in the diet, but the diet is part of my answer, right? So I have to honor it and I have to, you know, do it, but there's a way to do it that we don't put so much pressure on ourselves, and realizing that it's not about being 100% perfect in your eating. It's about doing the best you can every single day and trusting your intuition. And I'm a really big fan as well, with this idea of like 80-20. Right? So whether it's 80-20 in a day, meaning 80% of the time you eat healthy and clean, 20% of the time you eat whatever you want, or 80-20 in a week. So it's like 80% of the time, meaning like Monday to Friday, and then, you know, Saturday, Sunday, eat whatever you want. I love that approach to food because it gives me a lot of freedom. And then this way, it's not like there's the shoulds. There's not like, oh, you have to eat this or you can't eat that, or like that's off limits. No, be free. Like it's about food freedom, you know, it's about loving food and having fun with food and being carefree about it. It doesn't have to be so like, you know, rigid all the time. So I'm a really big fan of like the 80-20 principle in there as well. And then asking questions like, okay, like if I'm using food to try and solve my problems, well, first of all, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? You know, and then going about it by being like, okay, well, how can I actually solve this problem in a way that's constructive and gives me something? Because as we know, like we might be trying to solve our problem with food, but then once we do that, we feel guilty, we feel like crap, our stomach hurts, and then you just have days of trying to overcome this, right? So it's not like it actually gets us anything. It doesn't actually give us what we're looking for. So if we start to be like, okay, well, what are some things that I could do to help me to solve my problem constructively? Then we can start dealing with the root problem, and that kind of like frees food from all the labels and stuff we put on it. And it's just like, no, it's an enjoyable gift by God. Enjoy it. You know?
Yeah. And I think that like that beautiful gratitude is something that I really do think like so much of us are missing. And it's kind of like, I can't remember exactly what I was saying before, but just like the negative emotions around food and what we should and shouldn't eat, and trying to change it to the positive, and literally like celebrating so much of what we eat, and like the freedom and the gratitude. Like I've been on my food freedom journey for like quite a while now, and definitely the first few steps were like taking away the power that the food had over me, and being able to feel free to eat what I want when I want, and like trust my body. But oh my God, it was like, I want to say it was in the last like few months that I did like another pivotal shift. It was like, I'm actually so grateful for this amazing food in front of me and like celebrating how it tastes and the company and like the joy around it. I was like, oh, this is like a next level of like food freedom and nutrition. And I think that it's really something that we as Westerners do not appreciate. And like one thing that I can think about is when people kind of like save up for a big meal and then like there's all of a sudden all this pressure on this big meal and they overeat, they're not in tune with their hunger and they're not in tune with the people around them and they're not in tune with how it tastes in the celebration. And it's like you've built it up in your mind as like a big deal, a celebration, but where were you actually celebrating it in your body, on the plate? Like anything, you've now just like basically had a planned binge. And trying to rebuild that gratitude with food, I think can be so amazing, but so hard when we've spent so many years with the shoulds, with the can'ts, with the I'm not supposed to, with this is bad for me, I'll only have a little bit, I need to save up for it. So I would love to know like how you celebrate your food and celebrate your body.
Oh, great questions. I love everything that you're bringing up here. It's so important. And you nailed it on the head. I think I'm so grateful you said this, because after I just said 80-20, it is so easy to then like maybe save up for a special meal, but then it turned into like a binge meal, like you said. So like, this is so important to point out, just to kind of become aware of what can happen when we do these things. But I found for me, what really helped me to bring gratitude to my meal and to everything that was around me was remembering that the food didn't just magically show up on my plate. That like I have to keep like the people with the seeds and the farmers and, you know, the people who picked the food and drove the food to the store and the people at the store and then my husband and myself for the money and like, you know, me for making the food and then us for being together and eating it. So me remembering the whole chain of how the food got onto my plate makes a really big difference, because then I can almost like honor the whole experience of how it got here. So that's number one. And then number two, is to just slow down.
Absolutely.
Oh, you know, and I know for me, my big habit too, and I'm still not the best. I'm still quite a quick eater. But I used to almost like eat as I was going. I'm cooking and cleaning and I'm eating and I'm just going and going. Okay, this is my meal and it's happening. And that is also terrible for digestion.
Like every woman in America.
Yeah, hello. Absolutely, 1,000,000%. While you're doing everything else with the other hand, it's normal and it's you know, it's part of our culture, but it doesn't have to be that way. You know, like if we just go like, hey, no, like this time where I'm going to eat my food is sacred, and like start seeing it as a relationship instead of us just eating food to not be hungry. But no, like this is a relationship. This is an act of love. Right? This is me nourishing my body. This is me nurturing myself. This is big deals here. And really look at it as like a sacred container. Then we are more likely to be like, okay, let me sit with this meal. And even just the act of being present with the eating and the present with the chewing and the present with the others around it, that is celebrating. Totally. That is gratitude.
Totally. I think that that's so important. And you know what? I think everyone kind of knows that. I think everyone, and like a lot of people that I talk to, even my own clients, like, I know, I'm supposed to eat slower. I'm supposed to chew. I'm supposed to be more mindful. It's like, yeah. Why aren't you doing that? Like, what is the roadblock of like standing in the way of like really actually celebrating? And I think some people are a little bit scared to dive into that relationship with their food and try to be comfortable with it and try to honor it and try to have gratitude with it. I think that there's a part of numbing out that comes with eating on the go, with eating distracted and things like that. And I kind of remember feeling that fear. And yet I also can't remember what the hell I was afraid of, because when I made food like a celebration, and like I live on my own and I still set the table, I put a candle, I play music, like food has become truly a celebration. And yeah, I eat slower. And it's literally a world of difference, not just in, you know, I feel full when my body is full, but I feel emotionally satisfied by my meal. Like it's such an insane difference. And I really think that like if there's one takeaway for people to just start is to slow down. Like I think you're so right. It's just slow down, be mindful, be aware, be thankful of what they have in front of them.
Yes, so much yes. I'm getting goosebumps again.
Yeah, it's very interesting, the chain of like like going from the importance of understanding our nutrition and how it breaks down in our body, to also the importance of our nutrition and our food on, like you literally said, an emotional and spiritual level.
Yep.
Like it's just so interconnected. And I think we've really lost sight of that. So building that connection again is so beautiful, so important. And I'm so happy that you were able to share that with me, and that you're sharing that with other women and families throughout the world and like the country right now. It's so, so important. So lovely. Like, thank you for your presence.
Thank you for yours.
Amazing. And if anyone watching wants to get in touch with you or learn about your services and what you do, is there a way they can find you on social media, or how can my students find you to get in touch with you?
Beautiful. Yes. You can find me at wholeandhealthykitchen.com, whole, WHOLE, and Healthy Kitchen. I'm also Whole and Healthy Kitchen on Instagram. You can find Whole and Healthy Kitchen on Facebook. But my name is also Britney. So you can find me also on Instagram at Britney Shawley. You can find me on Facebook at Britney Shawley. And then I have my Whole and Healthy Living group on Facebook. I'm all over social media. And so, yeah, feel free to say hello, send me a message, say, hey, I found you from Meg. I would love to, love to meet your people.
So perfect. I think that this is such a beautiful connection that people can really relate to. And I really do believe in everything you're doing. I think it's so wonderful. So I want to thank you so much again for your time today. And I will definitely embed all that information in the video as well, so my students can find you whenever they need. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Meg. This was beautiful. Thanks for having me on.